We're going to go ahead and get started. I am going to pass individual introductions, but I will inform you we do have a quorum here. We are at a remote or a anchor location in the USBE offices. First time in 2 years. It's been a long time. With us, I'm Chair Hymas, Chair of the Law and Licensing Committee. With us, we have Member Hart, Member Lear, and Member Wood. And we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The first item on the agenda is public comment, which we do not have any. However, I'd like to take a moment just to invite the public, board members, and committee members that if you have any questions to reach out. And of course, we're coming off of a 14-hour board meeting last night, so if we can reduce that time with questions beforehand, it would greatly help me anyway. So let's move on to agenda item 2.2. This is R277-751, Special Education Extended School Year. This is an amendment and continuation, and we'll turn the time over to Leah or Dr. Voorhees to give us more information.
Thank you, Chair. Leah Voorhees, Assistant Superintendent of Student Support. R277-751, Special Education Extended School Year, is up for continuation. You'll see that there are some proposed changes. None of these are policy changes. There's not a single policy change. The changes that you see are to align the rule with your recent update to the special education rules incorporated by reference into R277-750. So there's just language changes. The only thing that looks like it might be a policy change, which it isn't, but is a difference in this rule, is we have added the information from the special education rules to this rule. That's lines 23 through 27. So this information already exists in 750 and is not new to, it was not new to 750. So it wasn't even a policy change when you updated 750. But when we updated the rules, you'll remember we had lots of public comment to update the special education rules. One of the pieces of feedback that we received from the field was that it would be helpful to have the ESY rule directly match the language in the special ed rules. So really, by adding lines 23 through 27, you're just mirroring the language in the special ed rules.
And I'm sorry, it looks like additional from 88 to lines 88 to 109, but that's the same.
It's exactly
concept.
The same thing. Yep.
Okay.
It's just copied and pasted.
Any questions from committee members?
I'm ready to make a motion if we when we're ready.
Let me just ask before we make a motion here. This I think you alluded to this, but this in no way adds any additional anything. It's just to put it into a source that's together.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Member Wood.
Thank you. I would move that the committee continue and approve R277-751 draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor is that the committee continue and approve R277-751 draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading. Any discussion to the motion? Board members, yeah. Aye. Passes unanimously. Is Board Member
Carey is on. And Board Member Carey, would you like to indicate with a green check or a red your vote?
Can I just say yes?
Yes, thank you. Perfect. That is unanimous.
Thank you, committee.
Okay, next item on the agenda, agenda item 2.3. This is the Adult Education Policies and Procedures Guide incorporated by reference into R277-733. And we have Stephanie Patton here to explain this, this action item. Thank you, Stephanie.
Excuse me, my voice is weird this morning. Stephanie Patton, Adult Education Coordinator. So the reason why this is coming up is because we were monitored by the Office of Career Technical and Adult Education in the summer, and as part of that monitoring, they identified an issue with our fiscal management section that needed to be changed. So when we're changing that, we thought we would, identify all of the things that need to be changed and do that all at the same time. You can see that the majority of the ones are from the assessment policy. This aligns it with the assessment policy that we have to submit annually to OCTAE, again, that Office of Career Technical and Adult Education. So.
Okay. Committee members, do we have any questions for Stephanie?
I do have a handful of questions, and probably just to help me understand as a new board member. There are some lines where it refers to students in both the K through 12 and adult education system, but it also says that an individual eligible to adult education is not enrolled or required to be enrolled in secondary school. So it seems a kind of a dichotomy of language until you get to the SPED section where it actually does lay out that they would be part of a K through 12 system in order to get those special education services. So can you help me understand at the beginning of the document why it's aligned with the K through 12 system?
Yeah,
Are there students that are in the K through 12 system, but then they are not enrolled in the school?
No, so that's a great question, and I can see why you would think that it looked contradictory. So the majority of students served by adult education are withdrawn from K-12, right? And that's because in order to be eligible for an adult education secondary diploma, you would have to be withdrawn from K-12. In order to take the GED, you have to be withdrawn from K-12, right? There is this subset, and a lot of them are based on special education. There's this subset of students who are actually still enrolled in K-12. They're receiving not an adult education secondary diploma, they're actually still receiving their K-12 high school diploma. They are not receiving any adult education funds. They're still funded solely through K-12 at WPU, right? The purpose of that is because for this student, parents, teachers, administrators have determined that the best placement for the student is to receive services in adult education because of the flexibility of schedules, additional hours, the individualized instruction, smaller class size, right? Some of those things that we can provide that K-12 is less able to provide. Sometimes you don't have any K-12 schools providing, evening hours from 4 to 8 or something. If those pieces that K-12 or that adult education are able to provide are more helpful to help the student actually still get a K-12 diploma, then they would be actually not really fully engaged or enrolled in adult education. They'd be receiving services in adult education, but actually still a K-12 student.
And does the manual differentiate that they are receiving the services, but they're not a part of the program? It didn't feel like that there was that differentiation.
Probably, yes, because we call them dual enrolled, but maybe not to the extent that you would prefer.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that was mostly questions. And then I have a few that are like really insignificant. And Carol says I should learn not to worry about this. But like well, the language, like, like on page 10, it says that the services should permeate throughout. And permeate actually means to spread throughout. So you're actually saying spread throughout. So I would delete throughout. That's what I'm saying. There are like simple changes like that I don't know if you want my recommendations sent to you and you do with them as they please, because they're not
I think
policy.
if they're not substantive changes, then we can
substantive
do it on a different time. Yeah.
So I'll send them, and if you fix them, great. Like there's a space missing. Okay, perfect. That's what I will do. I do have a question also, page 16. It says a student with a provisional EFT should be pre-tested using a valid NRS approved assessment as soon as reasonably possible. However, on 14B, it requires within 12 hours where possible. So is there, why the difference? Why with our provisional EFT students are we at, well, when it's convenient, as soon as possible, and yet we're very specific within 12 hours?
That is a great question as well. Wow, very smart. Anyway, the provisional EFL was not an option until COVID. So our policy and our procedures, right, where a student comes in, we immediately test them, right, within that 12 hours. Well, then COVID happened, and that was not necessarily an option, right? We didn't, at the beginning of COVID, we didn't even have remote testing available, right? So, and students couldn't come into buildings necessarily during COVID, and so there was no way to get that testing done within 12 hours. So the idea was, okay, we understand that, you know, this provisional EFL might have to be set before we're able to test, and the idea is as soon as possible, we test them. That may not be within the 12 hours. So it really was in response to COVID that was created.
So is it still necessary? Are we still using the
There
provisional?
are-
And do our other students need the flexibility that as needed? Should we be looking at this, or as the 12 hours always worked?
It, in 95% of the cases, 12 hours works, right? And so that's really like what we push for. There are certain instances like students are in lockdown in our correctional facilities and we cannot access them within 12 hours or maybe even longer, right? We don't know. Some of those students, we have to wait for them to get out of lockdown before we can test them. So there are, you know, those few cases where we still use the provisional EFL and we may not have access to them within the 12 hours.
Okay, and the as possible fixes those few that don't fit in. Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Sorry, I have so much to learn.
That's
So,
great.
And then page 17, this is probably a simple one, but if we go to the top of page 17, if you look at, yeah, right there under state adult education appropriations, it says money appropriated to the Utah State Board of Education for adult education shall be allocated to eligible providers for education, adult education, the total state allocation, and then it repeats itself. The Utah State Board of Education is responsible for appropriating the state allocation. I would just add that by formula into the top line and remove the last one, just so that it's easier. There's a lot of repetition in this manual, like over and over. And so as if you're someone who's trying to get through and get to the meat of it, all this repetition just
That's fair.
and then
Would that require an amendment, or is that?
it's another one of those. I'm just gonna send her my page. And
If they're non-substantive, I think, especially if Stephanie, you're able to make some of these changes before it goes to the full board, then you can make them. Because essentially the committee can just direct staff to make these non-substantive changes and maybe request that staff review the feedback and incorporate the changes before the next board meeting.
So, and then, yeah, that's all my questions. So I'll just send it to you, and I would move that some of these, you know, non-substantive fixes be done before it moves to the full board.
Okay, thank you, Member Wood. Member Lear, I see you have a question. Could I just ask my question real quick? It says that we're increasing the number of hours required before a post-test to 50 hours. Maybe you covered it already, but why go from 40 to 50?
So a couple of reasons. We looked at data and the majority of students aren't seeing a level gain until 80 to 100 hours, right? Some even more than that. And so, you know, some of our students, it depends on location and where the students are, what their services look like. But some of our students are being tested really often if we stick to the 40. We're just trying to extend that a little bit to raise the sites of programs to keep the students as long as possible and to alleviate the over testing, right, of some students.
Thank you. Member Lear?
My comment was
Sure. We can do that. Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, I'd be seeking a motion.
But we'd have to be able to read.
This is Molly Hart.
Throw that microphone on, will you?
This is Molly Hart. I'd like to make the motion that the committee approve the update to the Utah Adult Education Policies and Procedures Guide incorporated by reference into R 277-733 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is that the committee approves the update to the Utah Adult Education Policies and Procedures Guide incorporated by reference into R 277-733 on first reading and forward it to the board for approval on second and final reading.
I might add with any what's the word? Non-substantive changes that need to be made.
Sure. Yes.
Yes, yes, and this is Angie Stallings speaking, but Stephanie, I think we're taking that direction that to incorporate the non-substantive changes before a board meeting.
Yes. Okay, committee members, please vote, or all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next agenda item is agenda item 2.4, R 277-733, Adult Education Programs. And again, we have Stephanie Patton to help us here.
You can turn to me first, is that
Oh.
right?
We'll have Angie Stallings.
Yes, and I'll just explain that the manual that you just approved and supported, now this rule incorporates that manual by reference. So there are two separate motions. One is to approve the manual, and then once the manual is approved, then we incorporate it by reference into R 277-733. And that's why you can see on the screen above or on your screens how it's now incorporated by reference.
Yes, Member Lear.
So I think I'm seeing that the only change is that the manual incorporated by reference and then changing the name to the family educational. Oh, no, not that one. The one about the, the name of the Adult Ed and Family Literacy Act, I guess, was changed. Is that, or did you just link it? Is that why it's blue?
It's just linked.
Oh, good. Okay, never mind. So the only change is to incorporate the manual by reference. Okay.
And
Oh, yeah.
the fees,
What line?
requirements.
What line is that on?
185.
And this is Carol Lear, and I'm sorry, I just did not do what I ask everyone else to do, so. 185, can we just look for 1 second, Matt? Oh,
You want to explain, sorry, the other changes that are in there, or is this it?
Yeah, Stephanie Patton, Adult Education Coordinator. So the additional change is actually in a result of the reports subcommittee or task force that is looking at how to reduce reports, right? So we don't really do a lot with those reports except for those who are federal grantees, but it was requiring all adult education programs to turn in that report. So this just eliminates the need.
Yeah, it appears that there's some language stricken on lines 174 and 175, and then additionally on 185.
I see.
Chair, I have a question.
Member Wood, please.
Leanne Wood. On line 67, it says that to be eligible for adult education students, they must be 17 years of age or older. But in the manual that we just approved, it was between the ages of 16 through 18. Should this language in the rule align with the manual, or should the manual align with the rule?
I thought it was.
Yeah, so Stephanie Patton, again, it does actually say in D, it says an out-of-school youth 16 years of age or older who has not graduated.
So how does that align with 17, whose class
Because 17, they're already, whose high school class has graduated.
Okay, so it's just working with younger.
So it's
okay, it
just saying
yeah, it
if
didn't
you're
align
7
exactly, so.
Yeah, I mean, it does, it's phrased differently, but right, if you're 17, your high school class has graduated, you're already out of school and you're eligible. Or if you're 16 and your class has not graduated, but you have one of these things, you're out of school, then you're also eligible. It's just delineating and
Or you
it's
are,
aligned.
or you are working with the school through to receive the services.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's,
but yes, but technically you're not fully enrolled in adult education.
okay,
Yeah, it's a technicality.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Lear, your microphone is
No, I just, sorry.
okay. With no additional questions,
Motion. I'll make
thank
a
you.
motion if
Member Lear, please.
you'd like. I move that the committee approves R277-733 draft 1 on first reading, forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you, Member Lear. The motion before the committee is that the committee approves R277-733 draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Committee members, all in favor, say aye.
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 It passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we are on agenda item 2.5, R277-532, local board policies for evaluation on non-licensed public education employees or classified employees. This is a repeal. So we are going to hear from Deputy Stallings, please.
Thank you. This is Angie Stallings, Deputy Superintendent Policy. So Ben Rasmussen is the lead on the remaining items. He is still with the Finance Committee on the rule that he was supporting. And so I'm wondering if Malia, if you have any background, and it looks like she does, she just raised her hand. Could you help provide any background on why staff is recommending that R277-532 is we recommend it be repealed?
Yes.
Dr. Height, please. Yes.
Hi, Malia Height, Executive Coordinator of Educator Licensing. This rule is up for its 5-year review. And so we're proposing to repeal it and then renumber it up with the rest of the licensing rules in the 300. So that will be your next action item on the agenda. But there's nothing that has changed substantively between the rules other than their numbers.
So we're just doing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Height. Committee members, any questions to this? Okay, I'd be seeking a motion.
Go ahead.
Leanne Wood, I move that the committee repeal R277-532 on first reading and recommend the board repeal the rule on second and final reading.
Thank you, Member Wood. The motion before the committee is that the committee approves R277-733 draft 1 on first reading, and that's not right. I know, I just got the wrong paper. Thank you, Member Wood. I'll try again. The motion on the floor is that the committee repeal R277-532 on first reading and recommend the board repeal the rule on second and final reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passes unanimously. Next agenda item is item number 2.6, R277-329, local board policies for evaluation on non-licensed public education employees or classified employees. And this is a readopt, and we'll turn the time back over to Deputy Stallings.
Well, this is the renumber. I'll
Right.
just make the motion.
So that is, and one.
Oh,
Just quickly, it's, as Dr. Height mentioned, the rule we just repealed, we're renumbering, putting it into 329. And I know that Board Member Hymas, you had asked a question about whether we had eliminated compensation. And yes, if draft 2, it does eliminate that word. And I don't know, Board or Chair Hymas, if you'd like Malia to provide any additional feedback, but otherwise, this is the renumbering of 529 to 329.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. All of the, if you can see, all of the non-licensed public employee has been changed to classified employees, and then the compensation, and I requested that to be removed because it's compensation is not mentioned anywhere throughout the rule other than that one spot, and so it doesn't really apply there. So anything you want to add, Dr. Height?
No, Chair, thank you.
Okay, I'd be seeking a motion.
I have a question.
Oh, Member Lear.
Yeah, this is Carol Lear, and I'm just maybe needing to be reminded because it refers specifically only to public school districts. So charter schools don't have to have policies about classified employees. Is that what it amounts to?
Chair, if I may.
Please.
She just saved you, Angie.
Yeah. That is correct. So the policy only applies to districts, not to all LEAs.
I can't recall. This is Carol again. I can't recall. Is that? Oh, and I'm sorry, Chair. Is it okay if I
No, yes, please.
follow up?
Please.
Is that per the code? Is that?
Yes,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah,
Thank
Angie's
you.
got it up right there. It says school district specifically in the code.
All right. Thank you for that refresher.
Thank you. With no other questions, I'd be seeking a motion.
I'll make that motion, which I had it
Thank you, Member Hart.
and now I don't.
There,
I move that the committee approve R277-3
Draft 2. Oh, there it is.
draft,
Okay, perfect.
329, draft 2 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you, Member Hart. The motion before the committee is that the committee approve R277-329, draft 2 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
I'd like to ask another question.
No, go ahead. We're open for discussion to the motion.
Okay. I just realized I have an expert here, sort of. I'm just wondering, I think I've wrestled with this before. It's Carol Lear again. And I wondered, Matt, if the charter school that you direct has policies about for non-licensed, has any policies, even though you're not required to by law. I think I recall that there was some belief that it was not necessary because charters have their own separate policies. Do you have policies? Does your school have policies for this kind of stuff for your non-licensed people?
Yes, for non-licensed public education employees or classified employees, we do have policies. There's always a due process, of course, whenever working with an employee. We value those. That was one of the, I had some emails back and forth with some of the constituents
Oh, interesting.
about this, and some of them kind of felt that they were being forgotten or left aside or not treated right. This rule puts a process in place, obviously, but to answer your question, for charters, it's very similar. It is not in this rule, but they still go through very similar processes and policies.
And in your experience, this is Carol again, in your experiences, the charters, I would think, don't have all the same policy, do they? Do they have individual policies, or?
They would have more, it'd be more individualized. I wouldn't be able to, I've never reached out to another charter and asked,
I'm
quite
just
frankly.
curious
Yeah.
if you knew. Thanks. Because I do think having some kind of a policy and not just addressing these on the fly is a good thing. And I hope charters have that. Not so much, I mean, this is more an evaluation process, not so much the compensation process, but
Right.
I hope that they do have policies for that allow for evaluating how well those other employees are doing. Thanks.
Yeah,
That's all. I just had that curiosity and I realized that you would have some expertise. Thanks.
yeah, thank you. Okay, so the motion before the committee is that the committee approve R277-329 draft 2 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Committee members, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that passes unanimously. Okay, we are on to our next agenda item, item 2.7, R277-104, ADA compliant procedure. This is an amendment and continuation, and we will ask Deputy Stallings to enlighten us.
Yes, thank you. So you'll notice that a lot of the rules that we have today, and this is Angie Stallings, by the way, are continuations. And we were looking at our rules that are going to be sunsetting over the next, or sunset over the next 5 to 6 months. And we decided, let's try and get these on our agenda this month so that once we have our very robust post-legislative session rulemaking in April, May, and June, we will have a lot of the continuations that won't be in the mix as well. So this is one of the rules that was up for continuation, and Ben Rasmussen just happened to walk in at the perfect time to discuss R277-104 ADA complaint procedure. I can tell that staff have recommended that it be continued. Ben, would I, or if the
Yes,
chair
please.
approves?
Thank you, Chair. Ben Rasmussen, Director of Law and Professional Practice. It's good to be with you this morning. This is up for its 5-year review. I had the AGs review this. They recommended, I believe, one change where it talks about who the ADA coordinator is. The AGs recommended that we change that to superintendent. That basically allows staff to accept those complaints and figure out how to process them in consultation with the AGs. And then we also, on 43, in the draft, we got a recommendation from Chair Hymas that we change that word there. But other than that, this is just a 5-year review continuation.
Yeah. Committee members, any questions for Ben?
I see one
Member
other-
Lear, please.
Thanks. This is Carol Lear. On line 64 to review to reconsider. Is that the one that Matt recommended the change, or is that?
No, it's right where you were.
Line
43.
64. I see one on 64 also.
The one on 64, I believe that was in the original draft 1. And Ben can speak to that.
That was just that was a technical change recommended by Assistant Attorney General Brian Quessenberry.
So doesn't it make it, if I can
Please.
ask again? So again, Carol Lear, so that doesn't make it just a continuation, isn't it an amendment, a continuation and amendment then?
It is an amendment, but we're also asking that you continue the rule as
Okay,
part of
so
the
it's
amendment.
both.
Sorry if I
That's all right.
misspoke there.
So let me just make sure. We've got that one, and then on, what was the other line that you mentioned, Ben?
It's 43, or are you talking about my?
Yes.
It's right before, the other one
Yeah.
is right before, on line 42.
Oh, okay.
Assistant Attorney General Quessenberry recommended that we change that from ADA
Right.
coordinator to superintendent.
Okay.
And then I can speak, Member Lear, to my recommendation here on line
Sure.
43.
Yeah, I like that.
So what I was noticing when we were reading this is it says a description of the action or accommodation needed, and it wasn't clear if the action was because on line 41, it also says a description of the alleged discriminatory action. And so we wanted to clarify that D is what the reporter is suggesting is the remedy or the action that can fix this, or I don't know how to word it best, but Ben worded it best by putting remedy rather than using action twice. So we're hoping it just clarifies for anybody making a report what we're actually looking for. Any other
Great. No,
Thoughts?
thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay,
Simple, but.
I don't see any other questions from the committee.
Do you want a motion?
Member Wood?
I'm Leanne Wood. I move that the committee continue and approve R 277-104 draft 2 on first reading and forward it to the board for continuation. Does that need to say and amendment and approval on second and final reading?
No, the amendment is, so this is draft 2, which covers everything we haven't.
But then,
we
okay,
haven't
thank
amended.
you.
So the motion before the committee is that the committee continue and approve R 277-104 draft 2 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Member Carey?
Yes, yes, 2 ayes.
Thank you. Two, perfect. That's that one passes 6. Okay. All right. Our next agenda item is item 2.8. This is R 277-107, educational services outside of an educator's regular employment. And this is a continuation, and we'll turn time over to Ben Rasmussen.
So thank you, Chair. This rule basically sets forth rules for educators that are performing education services outside of their regular employment. This is up for its 5-year review. We don't have any substantive changes to propose, so we're just asking for a continuation. I will note, Member Wood, we got your spelling error and we've corrected that non-substantively, so there's no further action needed on that. But we appreciate you catching that. But this is just a straight continuation unless you have any questions on it.
Still motion.
How often, Ben, this is Member Hymas, how often are there issues with this rule? I don't imagine.
I'm not aware of any issues that have come up with this rule.
With employees, I mean, like violating this rule?
I'm not aware of any issues that have come in our agency, and I haven't heard of any from the LEAs either.
Okay, so the reason I ask is I wonder if it just doesn't get reported.
It probably would not be. It would because it's primarily for the LEAs to enforce if their employees are having these kinds of issues.
Member Hart?
This is an absolutely necessary rule, and those lines are very blurred for educators.
Okay.
And I actually keep a copy of this rule in my desk and have for the last 7 years.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Member Lear?
This is Carol Lear, and I was going to say something similar. I actually when I was working here, this was a really concerning issue. It kind of developed, I think, maybe when the economy changed a little bit. That says how long it was ago, where public school teachers were more often than not having a second job. And sometimes those jobs, and this is just a little walk down memory lane, if you don't mind, because we've got some time, but they did have second jobs that were sometimes not, they were more commonly sometimes used to using the building or the resources or of the schools to carry out this, especially in more rural areas, to kind of carry out personal pursuits. And so this rule was brand new at the time, and it was kind of an interesting eye-opening experience for some communities who'd always assumed that the high school teacher would teach private band lessons at the high school. And so it was really needed at the time. And I think it goes to the credit of administrators and teachers that they've really internalized this. And I'm sure that it happens occasionally, but I think they've really been very accepting of this distinction, as they should be. So I think it's a good thing.
Thank you. Member Hart?
Molly Hart, I want to clarify, I keep this rule because teachers ask for clarification, not because they're doing the wrong thing,
Right.
but because they need guidance. And a couple of examples, the private lessons is one, but then when you think about the travel, like the tour companies, that if you get 10 kids together, then you get to, you go free, and can you advertise that at school? Can you not? And then just the athletic camps, of course, and other camps. So there's just, educators are committed and they do things during the day, on the weekends and the evening times. And it just provides them, guidance and guardrails to make sure that everything is on the up and up. So I'm not saying that our educators violate this. Let me be clear. I'm saying they're asking for this guidance.
Right.
Same, that's what I.
How, Ben, how old is this rule? When did this come into?
I'm not sure when it was first adopted. I know it was last continued 5 years ago, but I suspect it's longer than that.
I just,
Yeah.
I
Member
just-
Lear may be better to answer that than I am.
I just wonder because I remember my father
2018.
working, okay, no, it's older than that. Like I said, I remember my father working throughout the summer and then doing side jobs, in the 80s and 90s, teacher salary wasn't great.
And Molly's right. It was over, it was in the beginning, probably the biggest concern was the trips. And probably between the clinics, the athletic clinics, and some employees doing those on their own and thinking they could use school equipment, and then the trips of advertising the trips in their classes, and
Right.
I'm really hoping that there are as few violations of this as I've heard, because it was a pretty big problem 25 years ago, probably,
Well, and as the rule reads, it's
maybe longer.
more of a resource than a gotcha,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And it's a valuable resource that
Although there's
LEAs
still
can have.
some offenders, but mostly out of lack of information, not because when you teach, kind of your school is your second home, and you don't see the distinction sometimes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digress.
Thank you, committee members. Any other questions or comments on this agenda item? Not, I'd be seeking a motion.
I'll make that motion. This is Member Lear. That I move that the committee continue R277-107 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation on second and final reading.
Thank you, Member Lear. The motion on the floor is that the committee continue R277-107 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation on second and final reading. Committee members, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that passes unanimously. We have one final agenda item. And the title here is Social Studies RFP Committee Selection. And Deputy Stallings, please.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, if somebody else would like to speak to
No.
it, but just, okay, this is Angie Stallings. This is just a refresher from what happened yesterday, where the board approved a motion to support a 2023 social studies competitive, social studies RFP process or competitive grant process. Part of the process will have 3 board members participate on a review committee, and each of the 3 committees will have 1 representative. So this agenda item is for the committee to select our committee's representative for that committee.
Chair, I'd like to
Member Wood.
nominate Carol Lear as our representative from Law and Licensing.
Okay. Member Lear?
Sure, I'll serve.
Oh.
I'd love to do it.
Your light was on.
If called, I will serve.
I find interest in this as well. I know that we had a conversation about this a little bit yesterday. So I don't know if I get to nominate or throw my own hat in the ring.
I'll
I-
nominate Matt,
Well, thank you, Vice Chair Carey.
so it doesn't look so self-aggrandizing. I will nominate.
Not really.
Thank you.
We give speeches, do we have campaign?
Well, that's
I've got some leftover signs and stuff.
You have a comment, Member Lear?
I was just saying to Member Hart, it's Carol Lear speaking. I was just saying to Member Hart, I think this sounds tedious to some people, but I think it is really important that I've been on a couple of RFP committees before, and I think it is very important that there is balance and expertise to the extent board members have expertise in any of these areas in setting the requirements for the RFP and then reviewing them. And I think we'll just write it probably in the beginning. I don't know if it's not a choose or selection thing, but writing good standards is a little bit tricky. And I think that'll set the tone for what this experience will look like. And so I just think it's very important. And I have had experience. I am an attorney. Sometimes tedium suits me. So yes, I'd like to do it.
Okay. I appreciate that. I don't know what a good time to speak is. Maybe now. I obviously have similar sentiment as Member Lear. This is important, and there does need to be a good balance. I feel that I can, and I'm not speaking against any other members of the board or committee, but I feel like well, nobody cares what I feel like, but I'm positive that I can bring a good balance to the needs of the state in this regard. So with that, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but there is a motion presented by Member Wood, and the motion is.
And then there was a substitute motion
substitute.
by Board Member Carey. So the question is, did you recognize the substitute motion, or are we starting with the first one?
If I'm honest with you, I didn't recognize any motions because it was a recommendation. And so if we need to formalize this into a motion.
Yeah, I nominated her. I didn't motion.
You did do a motion, oh, you just nominated.
She nominated, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So I guess we'd be seeking a motion.
I move, if I'll be recognized.
Say that again, Member
I
Vice
said
Chair
if-
Carey.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If I'm recognized, I would just move that Chair Hymas serve as the Law and Licensing Committee representative on the RFP committee.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is that the committee approves Board Member Hymas to represent the Law and Licensing Committee on the 2023 Social Studies RFP Committee. Any discussion to the motion? Any questions? There's silent head thinking here. We ready to vote? Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote, seeing as how I'm positive that this is going to be not unanimous. So we'll start with Vice Chair Carey.
Yes, in support of the motion.
Member Wood? Member Lear?
No.
Member Hart? Yes. Member Hymas is a yes. That motion passes. With no other agenda items, we are, do I seek a motion to adjourn or we just finished? We are adjourned. Thank you, committee members.